Good morning. I'd like to call our meeting to order this morning. I'd like to ask Pastor Charlie Mimley from the Christ Community Ministries to come to the podium and say our invocation. If everyone would please rise. Good morning, Pastor.
Good morning. Thank you. Let us open in prayer. Heavenly Father, we humbly come before you this morning. Give us encouragement and direction today. Bless this meeting, the Lee County Board of Commissioners, and those who are here who have been called to serve. Last year was a trying time for our community, but even in these difficult circumstances, we know you are working all things according to your will and purpose, bringing people together in unity and love, as we have seen so many times in the past few months. In this new year, as we look to you, our author and perfecter of faith, guide us in your truth and give us your wisdom and instruction. Lord, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In your Son, Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. We're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and after the pledge, I'd like to ask that we take a moment of silence to remember Jim McPhee. He was a 14-year paramedic for Lee County, who also served our country in the Army and even through the 9/11 terror attacks. So after the pledge, we'll take that moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated.
Driver.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of County Commissioners this morning. And this morning we'll begin with our ceremonial presentations. The first one, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Ruane for a presentation to Sanibel Captiva Community Bank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members for the Sanibel Community Bank, could you come on up here?
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi. You guys doing?
Gives me great honor to do this. I came here in 2004, right after you all opened, and proud to be a member and a client of yours for the last 20 years. You've done a great job, so thank you. So with that resolution, whereas the only local bank chartered on Sanibel Island, but grown from 2 island locations, predominantly serving residents and business of Sanibel Captiva, has now grown to 8 locations throughout Lee County. And whereas SanCap Bank was founded in 2003 through the efforts of Craig Albert, and one of the locally owned and operated community banks in Lee County in Southwest Florida. And whereas it is consistently nationally ranked in the top 25 as the best performing community bank by S&P Global Market Intelligence of 4,500 banks with assets just under $1 billion. Whereas they employ 108 employees in Lee County residents, and over 60% are currently bank shareholders. Whereas the bank is committed to driving the local economy by consistently maintaining a higher than average loan to deposit ratio, by lending to local businesses, starting up, companies expanding their footprint, and families purchasing homes. And whereas since 2003, the bank has donated over $2.5 million to local community organizations and causes. And whereas annually over 1,000 employee volunteer hours are donated to causes contributing to the betterment of our community. And whereas it is fitting and appropriate to recognize the 20th anniversary of a locally grown financial institution. Now, therefore, it is resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida, does proudly take observation of this landmark occasion and does officially say thank you for the many achievements and betterment of Lee County residents, businesses, and the community, and offer a very happy 20th anniversary to all your employees, your board of directors, your shareholders, and future people in those capacities. Does hereby, with Sanibel Captiva Bank, continue success in the years ahead. It's duly executed by our chairman, Brian Hammond, on the 17th day, January 2023.
Good. Congratulations, y'all.
If you'd come on up, we'll take a picture, and I'll give you the resolution, and we'll have you say a few things.
How you doing? Hey, congratulations, Mr. CEO. Thank you. Yeah. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Would you like to say a few words?
Here's your resolution. My pleasure.
Thank you all for this opportunity, Kevin. Privilege, sir. In my short time at the bank, I've got to know you very well, as many of you, and this is truly an honor. There's been a few changes at the bank recently, but I say this all the time. This is not about me. This is about Craig Albert's legacy and the legacy to keep this locally owned and operated institution here for a long time. On behalf of our board, on behalf of Craig, our 109 employees that we currently have, and the community here that we get to serve, it is an honor. And we've seen a lot in this past year, and I vow to make sure that we help this community rebuild. We have the capital to do so. We are not a fly-by-night institution. We'll be here for a long, long time, helping each and every one of our community members in this area. And for that, thank you so much for this opportunity, for this privilege, and let's have a strong start to 2023. Another 20 years is on our horizon, so thank you.
Kyle, I appreciate your comments. Honestly, there's so many things your bank has done for the community, and I can't thank you enough. But honestly, what stands out the most is during 2019, and we run national-wide companies throughout the United States, and you helped facilitate hundreds of PPP loans for clients that weren't even your customers. And you did it with professional, expeditiously getting them the funds to enable them to actually recover. So as a private person, I not only thank you, and as a commissioner, I see all you do in the community and what the bank does, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you.
Thank you again, guys. Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Ruane. At this time, I'd like to recognize our Deputy County Manager for the One Organization Pitch Employee Recognition Awards. Mr. Harner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, we're going to present the County Manager's One Org Pitch Employee Recognition Awards. The Pitch Award stands for professionalism, innovation, trust, collaboration, and honesty. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Erin Hailstone.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Erin Hailstone, Director of Human Resources, and accompanying me is Victoria Avis. She's the Manager of Learning and Development for Human Resources. We're very excited to present the first annual County Managers One Organization Pitch Award. 5 employees have been selected to represent each of the 5 principles. They are professionalism, innovation, trust, collaboration, and honesty. These winners were selected from over 400 annual nominations and vetted through a committee of departmental representatives. Their work represents the very essence of the One Organization philosophy. This is where county employees work together to combine collective resources to support one another and the citizens of this community. Each winner is going to be receiving a county manager's coin, a certificate of award, and a $500 bonus on their next paycheck. Victoria will now introduce the winners.
Good morning, Commissioners. As Director Hailstone just mentioned, we do have our 5 inaugural County Manager One Org Award recipients with us here this morning in the chambers. It is my distinct honor to get to present them to you now. To spotlight their exemplary efforts in support of their fellow county employees in our community, we have a short video clip introducing each recipient to provide a brief overview of their nomination that they are being recognized for today. After the video clip finishes, the recipient will come forward to be received by Deputy County Manager Harner and to receive their award. So our first recipient today is Amy Hoyt with the Department of Innovation and Technology. Amy was recognized by the Director of Public Safety, Ben Abis, for her innovation and collaboration on mapping technology for the computer-aided dispatch system that we use in our Public Safety Division. We'll go ahead and show Amy's video now.
About 5 years ago, the county went to a new dispatch system called Hexagon, and I was brought in to help create the base map that the dispatchers and the first responders would see in the trucks. The new system, Hexagon On Call, has a GIS engine, which is the same GIS that we use here in the county. And so that gave me a lot more functionality and tools and techniques that I could use. So we have total control of the system now.
She has so many different resources and things that she brings into these maps that make the responders' jobs, the call takers' jobs so much easier. One of our lead technicians that works on our communication center brought it up, and he was showing me all of the different features of the map, and he said, "This is the map of my dreams." And when we can give those employees the tools to do their job the best way they can, that's really, really powerful. And that only happens when we have collaboration across departments.
You know, for us, that's the core of our being, is the one org concepts, and it's just a joy to work with the county staff here.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Our next recipient this morning is Nick D. Filippo with the Department of Community Development. Nick was recognized by two members of our Solid Waste Department's leadership team, Rebecca Rodriguez and Linda Bram, for his professionalism and collaboration on an environmental project out at a solid waste facility. So we'll go ahead and show Nick's video next.
Lee County Solid Waste has around 200 acres of conservation easement wetlands that we need to manage. So we reached out to some vendors, try to bring someone in and help us manage exotics at these wetlands, and the numbers that we got were astronomical. So we took a step back and reached out to DCD to help us with this project.
As soon as Solid Waste Facility reached out to me, I knew that I could assist them with this project, given my experience working on lots of different exotic removal projects throughout the county. As part of the project, I prepared the bid materials and I verified that the contractors completed the work and ensure that the facility maintained compliance with permitting requirements.
One of the critical take-homes for me on this pitch award to Nick DiFilippo is that we need to work with each other as an organization and between departments so that we can really get the best knowledge and the best access to resources. And it's really just reaching out and asking for the help that helps us all be successful.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Nick. Congratulations, Nick. Thank you.
Congratulations, Nick.
Our third recipient this morning is Sarah Bowerman with Lee County Transit. Sarah was recognized by the Director of Human and Veteran Services, Roger Mercado, for her collaboration with his department on a cold weather outreach event. So we'll go ahead and we'll show Sarah's video now.
This particular outreach activity was scheduled at the regional library downtown, and because of the colder temperatures, we decided to add an element this year to have a warming station, which essentially is a large Lee-Tran bus parked downtown at the library to give folks the opportunity to get out of the cold weather. Staff really took it upon themselves to seek out coffee donations and donut donations. So instead of just providing a warming station, they wanted to provide really I'll call it a hospitality station. That particular evening, even Commissioner Sandelli came out and was on the bus with our team and Lee-Tran team. So it really was, in the spirit of one org, all these different players within Lee County government coming together to try to help that night.
The most important part was making sure that we had that warm bus there for them. And we stayed there, we spoke with people, we interacted with everybody. So it was really, really a really nice project. And we were pretty happy with the way it turned out. It turned out good.
I think they went above and beyond by engaging the folks, ensuring that they had coffee and donuts, because for some, that cup of coffee or those couple donuts was enough to get them through the night until the next day. They really embraced the opportunity at the end of the day to serve the residents of Lee County.
Sarah wasn't able to join us this morning, but her director, Robert Cody, is here to accept on her behalf. So go, Sarah.
What are you doing? What do you think for freedom? How you doing?
Thank you, Robert. Our fourth recipient this morning is Rob Phelan with the Department of Transportation. Rob was nominated by Marla Britton with the County Lands team for his professionalism and innovation in helping with the land use agreement situation on Fort Myers Beach. We'll go ahead and show Rob's video now.
During the last couple of years when TPI, commonly known as Margaritaville, wanted to do construction on the island, they were looking for a place to stage some of their equipment. If Margaritaville wasn't able to utilize our facility, they would have to cut off traffic in some area along the way. And this was an overall safer way of taking care of Margaritaville's need for this crane. So Rob stepped up and set up a situation where he took photos daily of the site, would go out there and give us a review of the property as to how it was being utilized.
They would have had to send a person down there in order to monitor the site, which would have taken them 4 hours essentially during season. You know, for me, it's just swing by, spend a few minutes of my time and see what's going on. So this really was a win-win for both departments.
I think when everyone knows what's going on and the wherefores and whys, it makes it more understandable in doing your job on a daily basis.
All of us kind of work in different areas, but we all have a common goal to serve the public.
Thanks as always. Thank you. Thanks, Rob. Thank you.
Our final County Manager One Organization Award recipient this morning is Tommy Castle with the Department of Sports Development. Tommy was nominated by staff of the Visitor and Convention Bureau for his help with an important hospitality industry event. So we'll go ahead and we'll show Tommy's video now.
Every year, the Visitor and Convention Bureau hosts the annual Travel Rally and Community Celebration. It is a very large event that we put together, and we get to showcase the impact that tourism has on Lake County. But this year we ran into a big challenge. We received about 3 months worth of rainfall and during a 24-hour period, which absolutely saturated and flooded the fields, and that created a big problem.
We started encountering a lot of rain, and several employees, we could see a lot of the water laying around. So I got with some of the park staff there at Lakes Park, great crew, some of the staff over at the sports complex. We got some rollers and a pump. We were able to use those pumps and those rollers and began to work on the field, which by the time the afternoon rolled around, we were ready to go.
It was truly Tommy's quick thinking, his creative thinking to find a solution on how we dealt with these flooded fields.
I think really the One Org philosophy to me is pretty simply put, is teamwork, being a team player. If your department has an asset that can help another department reach a common goal, share that.
We all have talents in many different areas or expertise, and it's just a beautiful thing to see it all come together.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for everything. Very patient, Tommy.
Could we get a picture with all
Yeah,
of them?
we're going to bring them all back up. So we want to congratulate all of our recipients today. Your efforts represent what is best about our organization. We're so proud to have you on the team. So if we could have those recipients and the directors and the nominators, if you want to come up front so we can quickly get a photo of everybody all together.
Congratulations.
Don't be shy. Everybody come on. Yep, you too. Come on down.
County
County Manager Award. Dave, get in it.
Dave up there. There he is.
2 rows?
Squeeze in.
Aw. Don't be shy. Perfect.
You guys are engineers. You
Are we
figure
looking
this out.
straight ahead or up top first?
She's done.
Go for it, Singer.
All right, ready? Here we go. Hold up. There we go.
Wonderful.
I know, that's not me. I went to that, though. That was in Northport. Okay. Give everybody a moment to get back to work.
That's nicely done.
Well, thank you, Mr. Deputy County Manager, and to the folks from Human Resources, too. What an amazing way to recognize our employees, so thank you for that. We're just going to give them a moment to head back to work. Okay, I think at this time we can take up the recap. Before we take up the recap, I'd like to recognize that our property appraiser, Matt Caldwell, is in the audience today, and I'd also like to recognize that our clerk has joined us, Kevin Carnes. Welcome. All right. So to take up the recap of the meeting, this is where we talk about any additions or deletions or changes to the agenda. The one item, C8, which would have been to adopt a resolution to amend the administrative code, is being asked to be deferred by the county attorney's office. So I'll need a motion and a second to do that.
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wayne and a second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion on that item? Do we have any public comment on the deferral of that? Okay, seeing none, we will see this on a future agenda. Something behind the scenes, I think, made this sound more confusing than it needed to be. So we had a good talk about what it's going to be, and then it'll be something that'll be brought back. But basically the request was, as staff is evaluating new contracts, they obviously look at the old rates and fees versus the new rates and fees. And my request was pretty simple. Just take that comparison and put it in the blue sheet so that we can all see it just plain right up front. And so I think what we ended up with was a little more complicated than it needed to be. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but anyways, we'll get that on a future agenda and get that passed. All right, are there any objections? Okay, seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, so let's move on to the consent agenda. Commissioner Greenwald, do you have anything to be pulled for discussion?
I do not.
Okay, Commissioner Pendergrass?
None.
I have none.
None.
You have anything? Nope. Okay, very good. So no items are being pulled for discussion. At this time, I'd like to take public comment on the consent agenda items. Has anybody come to speak in public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, I see no public comment, and I have no cards that say that they'd like to speak on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move all the consent agenda items.
Second.
Very good. All right, at this time, do we have any further discussion? All right, seeing no further discussion, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Let's move to the administrative agenda. Item number 1, Mr. Harner, you're recognized to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to award a contract to Ballard Partners for federal advocacy services, and I'd like to ask Mr. Sire to present the item.
Commissioners, this would engage Ballard Partners to provide federal advocacy services to the county in Washington, D.C. for the next year. And the contract does contain the ability for us to make annual renewals should we choose to do so. Dan McFall, who's based in Washington, D.C., would be the lead partner on our account. That said, we would have access to all of the partners at Ballard that provide federal advocacy services. We would also have the ability to tap Ballard Partners for supplemental work in Tallahassee should we need that. That would come at extra cost, but we have that ability. I would like to, just as an aside, use this opportunity to inform the board that we have been successful in obtaining a couple more federal earmarks. The Omnibus Appropriations Act that just passed recently in December and was signed by the president contains $2.4 million for the North Lee County Wellfield Expansion Project and an additional $2 million for the Burnt Store Road Widening Project. So we want to thank Representative Greg Stubbe for his advocacy in bringing that home for us. Thank you.
Commissioners, do we have any questions on this item for our staff? Okay, seeing no questions, then I'll call for public comment. Has anyone come to speak in public comment on the administrative agenda item number 1, the contract with our federal lobby team? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close public comment.
Move the item to approval. I'll second the item just with a comment. Obviously, it was something we were discussing beforehand, but it's also helpful to Glenn's point if we need any state assistance, as Stan Eagle has joined that firm.
Very good. So we have a motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass, and the second is from Commissioner Ruane. Any further discussion on that item? Just one question for the staff. Just how do you envision them working with the commissioners, and when do you think we'll get a chance to introduce with them and talk strategy and things like that?
Yes, sir. I think it will. We will work it just like we do with the state contract, so that so Dan and his team will work with county staff to formulate a more comprehensive federal agenda. But as part of that, we'll meet with each of you individually to get each commissioner's thoughts on that as well. And then you'll have direct access to Dan as you need it.
You have a target date for that?
We haven't set a date yet for him to come in from DC. I think to start out, we're going to do remote Teams type meetings. As soon as we have that button down, we'll get that to all of you.
Excellent. Any further questions or comments?
No, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask. The timing.
Good deal. All right. All right. If there's no further discussion, then I'll go ahead and call the question. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Harner, item number 2, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is accept the Florida Department of Environmental Protection grant for Hurricane Ian and Nicole emergency recovery. And I'd like to ask Mr. Boutel to present the item.
Good morning, Commissioner. Steve Boutel with Natural Resources. This $5 million grant administered through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection is really the first step in addressing our beach damages caused by Hurricane Ian. It is to be targeted without any local match at those areas that are ready to proceed based on existing permits and where there's existing public infrastructure currently at risk. Specifically, that will look at Lover's Key, where a breach threatens the access road there at the state park. And then based on availability of funding, the additional spot we'll look at would be Sanibel Captiva Road with the evacuation route south of Blind Pass.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions on this item? No? Okay, I see no questions. Thank you, Mr. Boutel. Does anybody want to speak in public comment on administrative agenda item number 2 today, the grant for Hurricane Ian and Nicole emergency beach recovery? Okay, I see none, so we'll move back to the board. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I will move the item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane and the seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. Any further discussion on that item? All right, seeing no further discussion, are there any objections? All right, no objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, Mr. Harner, please introduce item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is approve and adopt widening analysis for Alico Road Connector, Phase 1 widening. I'd like to ask Mr. Searchy to present the item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Searchy with Lee County DOT. This item is to approve and adopt a widening analysis for Alico Road Connector from Airport Hall Road roughly to where it turns south to go down to Corkscrew. Early in the design, when we realized we'll need additional rights-of-way or easements, we request these widening analysis be approved by the board, which assists both county lands and the county attorney in securing effectively the necessary rights-of-way or additional roadway.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions on this item? Seeing no questions then, thank you, Mr. Searchy. I'll call for public comment on the item number 3 on the administrative agenda. This is approving and adopting the widening analysis for the Alico Road Connector Phase 1 widening. Okay, I see no one coming to speak in public comment then, so at this time, do we have a motion?
I'll move agenda item number 3.
Second.
Okay, the motion for approval is from Commissioner Ruane, and the second is from Commissioner Greenwell. Do you have any further discussion on that? The only thing I would add is just thank you very much, Mr. Searchy. One final question. I know this is kind of a ballpark time frame, but what does the ballpark timeline look like for the construction of this project?
Hopefully beginning May 24.
All right, May of 24, and that's when we'll begin on Phase 1 construction.
Correct.
Right, very good. And then if that rolls as possible, as smoothly as we want it to, then you thinking 26 for the rest, or?
Hoping maybe starting late 25.
Late 25. Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Searchy. Yeah, this Alico connector's absolutely one of the best things we can do to relieve Colonial and Daniels, so it's an important connector for all of us. So, all right, very good. If there's no further discussion, then I'll call the question. Are there any objections? All right, seeing no objections, that motion carries unanimously. Mr. Harner, item number 4, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to approve the resolution of necessity support memo for Hancock Bridge Parkway Sidewalk Addition. I'd like to ask Mr. Searchy to present the item.
Good morning again. Similarly, same explanation for the previous issue is to approve a resolution of necessity where we need some slope easements for the sidewalk, which will be on the north side. This will finally connect all the way from Del Prado to US 41 along Hancock Parkway.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Searchy? All right, seeing no questions then, has anyone come to speak in public comment on the Hancock Bridge Parkway Sidewalk, item number 4? Okay, seeing none, then we'll come back to the board. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass, and the second is from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any further discussion on that item?
I just want to say thank you, Rain and staff, for bringing both these projects forward. As hopefully people will pay attention. There's obviously traffic's been an issue lately, and this year since the storm has increased, and we are acknowledging that, and we are responding. So thank you to all your staff for doing what you can.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, at this time, I'd like to recognize the County Attorney's Office for our first 9:30 public hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Halverson, County Attorney's Office. I have your first public hearing this morning. This item has been duly advertised, and I provide the affidavit of publication to the clerk. Item number 1 is a petition to vacate the public's interest in the unimproved public utility easement centered along the common property lot line between lots 8 and 9 of the platted lots at the corner of 64th Street West and Sunshine Boulevard North and Lehigh Acres. There are no objections, and staff's available for any questions.
Very good. Any questions on this one? Okay, seeing none. I have no cards. Has anyone come to speak in public comment on item number 1 on the public hearing agenda? Okay, I see no public comment then. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Greenwell and the seconds from Commissioner Ruane. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Item number 2, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have your second public hearing. This is a hearing to adopt an ordinance incorporating the board's fiscal year 22-23 capital improvement plan and the 22-23 school facilities work plan prepared and approved by the school board. I have reviewed the affidavit of publication and is sufficient to proceed. We are here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Jacob? No? All right, thank you, sir. Has anyone come to speak in public comment on item number 2 under public hearings? Seeing none, then I'll close public comment. Does somebody wish to make a motion?
Gladly move the item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane. Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Any further discussion? All right, seeing no further discussion, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right. Mr. Harner, I see none added to the agenda. Any walk-ons or carryovers? No. Okay, very good. At this time, Commissioner Greenwell, I'd like to ask, do you have any items to raise this morning? No? Commissioner Pendergrass, any
Yes, let's say thank you for everybody. Unfortunately, this week I'll be leaving town tomorrow to attend a conference in Orlando, attend the 18th Florida Transportation Board meetings. I will not be in zoning tomorrow, and also the MPO meeting on Friday. And if there is a opportunity on Friday for the MPO, if members do attend, I would look forward to leading that group for the next year. So thank you.
We look forward to you representing us well over there, and so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sandelli.
Good. Thank you.
Commissioner Ruane.
I have several. First and foremost, I am leaving this, as soon as this meeting's over, to drive up to Tallahassee. I've been invited to testify at the Senate resiliency hearing tomorrow, and at the same like-kind part of the body on the House side to do the same on Thursday. So I will not be here for the zoning and or the Port Authority meetings, as I've been asked to testify on behalf of Lee County. So I just wanted everyone to know that. Sorry I can't be here, but we all know how long of a drive it is. So I appreciate us moving along on this agenda. So.
Well, we know you'll represent us well up there as well, Commissioner. Thank you for the update.
Not a problem. The second item is, as a result of Hurricane Ian, we obviously find ourselves in a unique situation. We had a storm surge of unprecedented amounts, anywhere from 6 to 12 feet. And I just thought it would be a good opportunity to direct staff to review the proposed amendments in the Lee County regulations regarding height, setbacks, and other development limitations for potential hardening, obviously for residents to rebuild their homes and businesses, and reduces potential flooding. I think, if anything, resiliency, and I think Commissioner Greenwell, you could appreciate this more than anyone as a builder. I think we need to look at this holistically now that we've had an event as catastrophic as Ian, and if there's ever a time that we want to do what we can to be resilient first. And I think if that means potentially being open-minded to exploring and or enhancing our amendments, I think it's only as prudent to do so. So really it's to direct staff to review and bring back the proposed amendments to Lee County regulations addressing height, setbacks, and other developmental limitations that are potentially restricting residents to rebuild in businesses as well. This includes reviewing proposed amendments and provisions in the LDC and the development of South Seas, who obviously sustained substantial damage as well. But I believe this will be something we'll be doing through the entire county. I know other municipalities, including Sanibel, will be looking at this because, like I said before, we had unprecedented storm surges. And I just would like staff to bring this back at a future time for us to look at some potential solutions and or amendments to the plan, and that was my ask of you all.
Very good. Any questions, Commissioner Greenwell?
Yeah, Chairman, if I may make a comment on that. Commissioner, thank you for bringing that up. I think this is really long overdue. You know, as a county, we definitely, I feel like, need to look at our regulations and make some amendments to height restrictions and things because of the amount of height that we're required to bring houses and developments up to now. It kind of changes the game. So I think it's definitely something we as a county should definitely look at and move it forward in the future, for sure.
Very good. Commissioner Sandelli.
Commissioner, thank you again for bringing that up. There's, as we all know, there's a lot of anxiety in the market right now. People are anxious to get started, and I think when we have some clarity on what that means, it's good for everybody. So thank you for bringing that.
Very good. Mr. County Attorney, just one question. Does that direction need to be phrased in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So, Commissioner.
My motion would be to direct staff to review and bring back proposed amendments to Lee County regulations addressing height, setbacks, and other development limitations that are potentially restricting residents' ability to rebuild their homes and businesses in a manner that reduces potential flood threats. This includes the review and proposed amendments to provisions of the LDC applicable to development in South Seas as well.
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion is from Commissioner Ruane and the second is from Commissioner Greenwell. Is there any further discussion on this item? Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on that motion before we vote on it? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment and I'll call the question. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner.
And then the last item, I've been trying to move forward. I don't have anything relative to the task force, but trying to move forward with the task force. And I went back and been asked by several to look at the original disaster management contract we had. So my question is really to the county attorney, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I gave you a little bit of a heads up. But are you comfortable with the contract we have in place with Hagerty for FEMA and or any other reimbursements?
Mr. Chairman? Yes, Mr. County Attorney.
Commissioner, if the crux of your question centers on the procurement process, yes, I'm comfortable with that process. By way of explanation to the board, and somewhat going off of memory here, commissioners, as you may recall, we went through a competitive procurement process, I want to say like October of 2019. That yielded Hagerty as the successful contractor for a contract that was signed December of 2019 for a 3-year term. That contract also had the provision for 2 one-year extensions and a delegation of authority to the county manager to exercise those extensions. He did so in May of this year, fortunately, without benefit of the forecasted hurricane, but did extend that contract. So that contract was extended pursuant to the authority granted to him in the bid approval package and contains a term that runs until December of 2024. That is assuming, without regard to the exercise of the second extension that could take place, which would then take it out to 2025. So in terms of procurement, I believe the contract was lawfully extended consistent with terms contained within the original bid package and the contract as executed. And I hope that hits the mark of where your inquiry stemmed from, Commissioner.
Yes, and you're accurate in the timeline. It was sent out in June of 19, submitted in July of 19, and then obviously through our selection process in September of 19. And obviously, as a result of that, there were some changes that went through, and it went through on a consent agenda. And the changes basically has us in a position to allow Hagerty to continue to do all assistance in procuring grants and any type of funding in compliance with federal emergency acts in any public assistance declarations. So if I read that, it's for any public declarations. This initially was during, or talked about COVID initially in this contract. It obviously then went to Hurricane Ian. And would that also include if we had a, God forbid, a blue-green algae or red tide event? And that would be a declared emergency? Would they automatically be in a position to assist us then?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. County Attorney. Yeah.
I believe the procurement and the contract is broad enough to incorporate additional tasks. As I recall the procurement, it is on a task assigned basis. So the county is in control of that destiny. So should we end up with another event such as blue-green algae and the county chooses to task Hagerty with assisting us, it would be within the umbrella of that original procurement. But again, that decision to task them or not lies with the Board of County Commissioners.
And again, pardon me, and I'm just trying to understand exactly what Hagerty's role is and how we go through this. As some of you may be aware of, I've been very concerned about the cash that we might need, cash being the issue from the cash flow that we have to bank lines of credit to the things, and I've had some consternation about making sure we do that. Pete Winton has given us a dashboard of information. I did ask the question about Hagerty and how much we've paid them or how much we incurred. So to date, we've incurred, per Pete's memo, a little under $3.5 million worth of expenses. Part of this RFP indicates that events resulting in expenditures in excess of $100,000 will be presented to the board at the earliest convenience. I had some concerns with crowd golf in the time frame it took for us to ratify those expenses. We now have incurred $3.5 million, and I don't have any information whatsoever, so I'm going to have the same concerns of ratifying something 4 months after the event. I'm just concerned and look at this, and it's a broad and very vague contract, and just want to make sure that when we go in the opportunity to do so, and more importantly, this isn't an item that you have on a budget, so it's a little different for us to do so. But the RFP does call for us looking at expenses in excess of $100,000, and if we're in the millions already and we're 4 months from the storm, I just have concerns to the taxpayer dollars that we're supposed to be utilizing and making sure we do that. This is just really broad. It was the first meeting I was here for. And just have concerns in general, is this inclusive enough? And didn't know after the event if we had any other requirements to go out and rebid this. Now that the scope may be defined a little bit better, I'm sure like any business, there'd be so type of pro forma on what type of opportunities may be available to us, what type of administration fees may be able to be collected, and or what type of expenses. The only thing I've heard thus far is that we've incurred $3.5 million worth of expenses, and I have no real any way to tie that to any type of expenditure whatsoever. So I just have a lot of concerns as far as that is concerned.
Can I ask a question of the county attorney?
Yeah, Commissioner Pendergrass.
Sure.
So this extended the contract in May when that was brought back. Did the board ratify that at a later date in May or June?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Not to my recollection, but given that this issue was only presented to me for consideration at the commencement of this meeting, I would reserve on that question. But it is my recollection that the authority for the county manager to extend was contained in the original contract, and therefore I do not believe it would have been necessary to bring it back for ratification by this board. But I'm not certain as to whether we've done that or not.
I remember having that discussion with staff back at the EOC the week of the storm. That's what I was asking. I know that was already in place. And Commissioner Wayne, thank you for asking that question a few weeks ago. Pete sent that memo because I had the same question. You know, here we are going 4 months after the storm, and I know you're in charge of the task force, and I haven't really been seeing everything. So I asked some of the questions to staff about where this expenditures are going for, what services provided. So they were giving me some answers to those questions. So the services have been provided because I asked the same question. Because, you know, we all warn everybody, the public every day after the hurricane, you know, be careful, the guy shows up at the pickup truck with, you know, unlicensed workers, you're going to get ripped off and all this stuff. And we're seeing that now. We see some of these companies who went through the procurement process and they did not pass the procurement process back in 2019 or later in the year, and now everybody shows up on the doorstep because they see the opportunity with federal, state money coming in, and hundreds of millions of dollars out there, and so we have to make sure we assure that we provide those services to the residents, and that's why I want to make sure that we provide through federally approved vendors that we go through a procurement process to make sure we're not just giving money out for no reason. And I think a lot of these services can be handled by staff too. Like, for example, blue-green algae, we've dealt with that before. Roland and our staff has done a great job dealing with issues like that, and everything from oil spills to blue-green algae, red tide. So sometimes we don't really have to contract and give money out to people for a study or for services, and we have the staff in-house to provide these services. So I had the same question too, what the $3.5 million, where has it been spent and where is it going for? Haven't really seen any meetings or anything, but that's why they're asking about where the money is being used for. But I'll look forward to more updates in the future, though.
Yeah, the RFP clearly says in December of 19 that we are allowed 3 additional one-year periods to execute this agreement and continue to extend. That's what it says. You know, again, I go back to the events resulting in expenses of $100,000 or more be presented to the board at the earliest possible time. Again, that's just, I just want to make sure, and again, this is outside, I don't practice law, I don't have a law degree, and I don't even try to. That's why I rely on the county attorney to do such, and just want to make sure that this scope, as you know, was initially identified in 19, started with COVID, and it's gone to disaster management, but I think right now and might be able to quantify what our recovery might look like, what potential agencies we might be able to tap, what type of potential revenue are we going to bring in, and what expenses, what we might incur. You know, it's like a business. You would do a pro forma. I just have not seen anything, and we're 4 months after the storm. So I just want to make sure it's legally sufficient. Richard has indicated it is, so that gives me great comfort. There are some things that I've put in email, and I shared them with Deputy Manager Harden this morning. I'd like to see a lot more information come before this board about the dollars and expenses, because we are accountable to the taxpayers. We are accountable to those dollars, and $100,000 was the threshold, and at $3.5 million, 4 months have gone by, and I don't want to be in the same situation of not ratifying like I didn't ratify Crowder Gulf, because I have no knowledge, and we're continuing to incur expenses that we haven't seen.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for bringing this forward and keeping a good, close eye on it, too. One question that I have, just listening to your comments and the things that you raised this morning, is just maybe a question for Mr. Harner, and if not, maybe it is the County Attorney's Office. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that one of you could work with me on it. But so the $100,000 threshold on any contract, but specifically this one, how do we track when we've crossed that $100,000 threshold? And what is the process once that threshold is crossed to bring it to the board for approval?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask Mr. Witten to answer that question.
Commissioners, with a disaster, it's a little different situation. So we do emergency purchase orders because the board's not meeting. And we did emergency purchase orders during the disaster of $260 million. That doesn't mean we're going to spend all $260 million, but that was the purchase authority. It's just not Haggerty, it's other things, Crowder Gulf, Thompson, other contracts. We will bring that all back to the board for ratification in February.
Okay, so the time frame is, well, I guess February would be our next meeting. So the time frame is to bring, are you going to bring back specifically Haggerty or all of them?
All of them, yeah.
Okay.
Everything that was done under an emergency purchase order.
Okay, so
immediately following the storm.
Okay, Mr. Hunt. Yeah.
We can also put together a report detailing what Commissioner Wayne asked and provide that to each of the board member, and then also brief each one of you individually.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. I think now's a good time. If any of us have any questions we want to specifically ask in relation to those, ask them now so that the staff can begin preparing those briefings too, because this absolutely is something that needs to be examined. It's taxpayer money, so.
And listen, I get the fact that a lot of the $265 million is probably in the debris category, and Thompson does a great job with that. Again, what was unusual about this contract is, and again, I'm not in the county long, so forgive me, but I've been in office for 16 years, where we normally have an RFP and we say we're going to buy 3 trucks and it's $100,000, or we're going to clean up a lake and it's $1 million. When you look at this agreement, it talks about providing disaster management services that we seem necessary at an hourly rate. And my concern is potentially doing something that may potentially bring us some revenue, but does not. So if you just extrapolate its own profit center, we want to secure some type of funding for ABC. And they do all the research and believe we can. They bill us by the hour. We don't secure revenue. Could that potentially come out of the general fund because we owe them a bill? What's different about this RFP is that we don't have a finite amount. We don't have a not to exceed. We don't know anything of that nature, so I'm just trying to look at revenue and expenses and feel comfortable that we're not down a path. And when someone indicates, and Pete, I think you've done an amazing job doing what you need to do, and it's no reflection, just, I was voted in by the taxpayers to look at taxpayer dollars, and this is significant in nature, and just want to make sure I understand this a lot better than I do, because I really don't. This RFP is a very unusual RFP relative to the ones I've seen. Maybe you all have seen RFPs where there's no finite dollar amount or no finite, but I'm used to something specific, and that's where this is a little different. So pardon my consternation. The only other follow-up is, and then there's no requirement after 90 days of a storm to go out and rebid this or recertify this or anything of that nature, Mr. County Attorney?
Mr. Chairman? Again, from recollection, no, I do not believe so. And quite honestly, as a matter of policy, I'm not sure that staff would make a recommendation to go back out 90 days post-storm and perhaps change your disaster response team while you're still in the process of responding to that disaster. But I'll leave that to the administrative minds of the world.
And I'm not trying to beat anything, but this was expanded to include all future public assistance declarations. So in the consent agenda, we went from COVID to disaster management to all future public assistance declarations. That's what this says. So we've expanded the scope tremendously, and I just want to make sure as we've modified this and expanded this, that we are covered. It just makes me nervous as this expansion has just went from one envisioned disaster to all future public declarations. So to me, a declaration, any emergency declaration, wants to do any type of assistance in disaster management, no, and that's on me, but I'm just nervous to make sure we're covered, that's all. And maybe, since I put you on the spot, Mr. County Attorney, you can come back and look at this closer, review the original thing. I don't want to have you put yourself in a situation, and it's not fair, but I just thought as we go through this and trying to get this underway, and I also want to see the expenses associated with this, and I'm glad that Pete said it would come back in February. So just a little nervousness about, you know, should we have gone out for a competitive bid as this scope has changed dramatically, and I just want to make sure we didn't have to. That's the nature, and I'll stop there, and if there's any other research you need to do, Mr. County Attorney, since I put you on the spot, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Greenwell?
Yeah, Chairman, if I may. Yeah, Pete, I think kind of following up with what Kevin's saying is, I think we all have interest in looking at where our expenditures are going, and obviously we're spending a ton of money through this disaster, so I look forward to the report in February to take a look at that. I think it's something that all of us have great interest in looking at and hopefully help guiding the direction we go in the future. So I think it's very important. Thank you.
If I could, staff, thank you for the last few weeks providing information to me about what service we have provided, but I want to go beyond that for myself personally, is I want to know where the money, how is it touching the lives of the people in the community? I've not yet met one person yet out publicly in either public, so I'm walking on the street, this is, hey, I got my FEMA money, my house is rebuilt and everything, then my debris is gone. So we're still hearing that nobody's seeing there's all this money being collected throughout the community, all the different non-for-profits and everything, and I personally donate too. Where is this money? How is this money impacting our community, and how the money, our services, the $3.5 million, how is it impacting the residents of Lee County and the taxpayers? Because we're spending this money, but everybody I've talked to, from San Carlos Park to Island Park to Pine Island to Sanibel, they're like limited to, they've been denied, they weren't qualified for FEMA, their insurance turned them down, and they're just basically out trying to rebuild on their own because they can't get any assistance. People still live in their cars. We know the issue with the FEMA stuff, but how is the services, where's the money really getting back to the people that are living in their cars right now that's out of work and out of homes? That's one we'll see how it actually impacts the residents. Thank you.
Anything further?
I do appreciate that, and I would be remiss if I didn't give Matt Caldwell's office a shout out. He identified there's 550,000 parcels in Lee County, and almost 130,000 were substantially damaged. So a parcel is a gas station, a single family home, a condo, and when you look at homes and condos, there's almost 90,000. So again, just trying to help the citizens of Lee County, and I know the debris, everything about this is, and we were in Pine Island with staff, and they did a great job assisting in the questions, and we got every question under the sun, and we answered them as best they can. But the anxiety is going to continue to grow as people look at this and they want to move on with their life. And I think when debris is behind them, we can start to formulate and do this in that regard. But I appreciate the time, gentlemen. I've been longer than I want to, but thank you very much. And thank you, County Attorney. I appreciate all your assistance and guidance.
Very good. All right, thank you, Commissioner. At this time, then, we'll begin with committee appointments. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any this morning?
I do not.
Okay, Commissioner Pendergrass?
Yes, I have a few. A reappointment of Mary Campbell of the Villa Palm Street Lighting Unit. Rachel Ravitsky, reappointment of Villa Palm Street Lighting Unit. Chanel Nguyen, new appointment to Parks and Recreation Services. Bob Bevel, new appointment at Whiskey Creek Estates. Matt Price, a new one for the IDA.
All right, very good. We have a motion from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any discussion on these appointments? Okay, seeing none, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. I'll need a motion. I only have one new appointment. It is to appoint the Councilman Nigel Fullick from Bonita Springs to the Tourist Development Council to the ex officio non-voting seat.
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Ruane. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Greenwell. Do we have any further discussion on that? Objection? No objection. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Sandelli, Commissioner Sandelli, you got any?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one reappointment. Ronald, I hope I pronounce this correctly, Blazinowski. That's for the Fort Myers Beach and Soul Pelican Bay Channel MSN.
I'll make a motion.
All right. So we've got actually a motion from Commissioner Sandelli and a second from Commissioner Ruane. Any further discussion? Any objections? No objection. Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Ruane, any?
I do not have any appointments, sir. Thank you.
None this morning. All right. At this time, we'll move to county manager items. Deputy County Manager, Mr. Harner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no items today.
All right, very good. At this time, we'll move to county attorney items.
For
Mr.
the
County.
board's consideration today. Thank you, sir.
All right, very good. At this time, then, we'll take up public presentation of matters by citizens. And first, I would like to call William Joe Schottmiller. And after him would be Danny Ballard.
I would like to thank the young lady that put together the warming thing by the library. I wasn't partaking of it, but some people did, and I was able to get some blankets last night to some of the people. But again, I put on 6 the future development. We need, with over 2,000 people mentioned in Lee County being homeless, we need scattered places that could be bringing in revenue to build, like the Lois Healy's that you have proposed the efficiencies, the proposed in here, this room here, probably a year or so ago. It looks like a house. There's efficiency, own bathroom, own kitchen, that kind of thing. With people only getting $800 or so a month, where there's an elderly lady that's homeless, and in a country that, you know, says God we trust and we pull together, which I know things do take time, but the teamwork, as you mentioned, was brought up. As a team, we can make it happen. And nobody is saying free. You know, if there's the money's out there, loan it to the nonprofits and get your money back. Simple as that. You know, so nobody is homeless that doesn't want to be. You got people that want to be out on the drugs and stuff like that. I can relate to the alcohol and stuff years ago, you know, having a cousin killed in front of me and then just self-medicating. Addiction is a terrible thing, but you've got all kinds of programs for that. So, you know, working together, the resources as a continuum of care of the nonprofits together and rotating the money that comes in from the rents will aid the community and also aid the city and the county. So working together. Another thing is I understand from my daughter that there's people that go to every meeting that talk about me. Well, go ahead and talk all you want. I'm an advocate and I want to see everybody healthy, and that's the way it is. So may God bless all of you. I've got to take off.
Thank you. Mr. Danny Ballard, and then we'll have Matt Reinberger after that.
Well, I guess I want to say, County Commissioners, staff, Happy New Year. 23's got to be better than 22. But a concern I have, and I know we can't get into a conversation, but I'm going to bring it here, and then maybe you all can help. The other afternoon, there was a report in the media about the hyacinth problem that seems to be worse in the county now than it's been, probably storm-related, but that the hyacinth control district was having issues, but then they went on to say, well, you can't as an individual do anything to help us out, because, or you can, but you have to go get a permit. What redundancy crap is that? They have a problem, but they don't want to let you do anything to help them unless you go get a permit. It just don't seem like that's smart management, I guess, is a good way to put it. And I don't know if that, since they are a tax district, I don't know if that falls under your all's purview or the county attorney or county staff, or if there's any input put in, or where the permit is pulled. I don't know if it's pulled through Dave Loveland's office, if it's a state, you know, it was very vague, but it sounded pretty stupid. Well, we have a problem, but you can't help us because you got to go pull a permit. So maybe it's worth something looking into. If there's that big a problem and they can't do it, they don't have the funding, why won't you let the citizens help them? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. At this time, I'll call Matt Reinberger, followed by Tahita Mateen. Morning.
I'm here today on behalf of Septic Sucks, a citizen-led effort calling on state and county elected officials to address the septic systems that are ruining our water. Clean water is one of the top issues in our state, and each year we are plagued by algae and red tide. The science hasn't changed, and we know as long as time that septic tanks are a leading cause of the pollutants in our waterways. For more than a decade, the state of Florida, universities, and common sense that told us that septic tanks are harmful, causing algae blooms, killing seagrasses, not to mention human health. If we want to stop algae and red tide, then septic tanks must be addressed. We can't continue delaying and must start priority. Septic tanks are especially vulnerable during large storms such as the 2 hurricanes we had last year, Ian and Nicole. And in 2016, the Florida legislature passed the Florida Springs Protection Act, and in 2021, the Clean Waters Act. Governor DeSantis stood strong on this issue and allocated $114 million to clean septic, but local governments have failed to act, and our state continues to grow. New septic tanks continue to be installed. The facts are simple. Florida has an estimated over 2.7 million septic tanks, with over 100,000 are located in Lee County. Those are just the ones that we know about. Tracking septic tanks is not entirely accurate, since we only know about a system needs when they're installed or repaired. As a group of concerned citizens, we're calling on state and county officials to act. Call upon the Florida Department of Health and Department of Environmental Protection under Chapter 64E-6 of the Florida Administrative Code to halt permitting on any new septic systems. Develop a plan to have all existing septic systems either upgraded to include nutrient removal technology or converted to central sewer by 2030, and support Governor DeSantis in the expansion of the Clean Waterways Act as a way to ultimately upgrade our water treatment plants and remove all traditional septic systems. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, Ms. Mateen, good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you all again, and Happy New Year. First of all, thank you for continue to help us support the community and getting out the information regarding updates on Hurricane Ian. Of course, everyone knows the physical deadline was not extended. Right now, we're working within a grace period. So those people who are still affected by this storm can continue to apply for the next 2 weeks, counting after that January 12th deadline. Businesses, homeowners, renters, nonprofit organizations, SBA is offering 0% for that first 12 months and also no payment for that first 12 months. Disaster recovery centers are still open. We just continue to tell people while we are still here in the field, please go. Talk about your declines, your appeals, your reconsiderations. Start a new application. Ask us to help you with your understand your decline email. There's a lot out there. We just want to make sure that the citizens, this county understands that we are still here to make sure that they go into those centers, get all of their questions answered. Of course, they can still use the 1-800 number or website, but while we're still here, we'll help you upload your documents at the disaster recovery centers as well. And also fill out your tax forms, your statement of liabilities, whatever we're asking for, we're here to help you work through that process. Those disaster recovery centers can be located at the FEMA.gov DRC locator. Chambers have our information. Local governments, mayors, the county, of course, has all that information for the constituents to find, to locate those centers as well. As of yesterday, the SBA has approved over $1.5 billion in Florida. Lee County is responsible for $775 million of that, and that number just increases every day. So, you know, more applications in process, that number is just going to keep going up. And that is all that I have. Also understand the FEMA referral process. For those homeowners and those renters who were referred to SBA by FEMA, I can say it 1,000 times, please complete that application. Even if you don't think you need a loan, you can say no to it later or use it later if your insurance is not covering enough. Complete that application. If for some reason we cannot help you, it's an automatic process. We'll send you right back to FEMA for additional grant consideration. So I just want to make sure those watching, those here with us today understand that SBA application is important. And that's all of my time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ms. Mateen.
Have a good day.
Commissioners, if you'll indulge me for 1 second, may I ask a question? So I understand that you've approved $775 million in Lee County for SBA loans. How much of that funding has actually been distributed?
And that's not for me to say. I'm not sure, because a lot of that money, you can be approved, but a lot of people are not signing their loan and security agreement, so it's not in their pocket. A lot of people are still reviewing all of the necessary, you know, the document, the promissory note. So the money that's approved may not necessarily be in their pocket already by certain criteria. They may not have signed the paperwork yet. They may be going to modify it, ask for more, ask for less. A lot of people, I'm trying to think, a lot of people I heard last week that they couldn't find their insurance company anymore to sign off on their paperwork. So they were approved, that money is in that, you know, in that approval, but they couldn't find their insurance company. But now SBA, the Processing and Disbursement Center, says that those approvals don't need that signature. They just need to know the name, how much they received from their insurance, you know, just to kind of help with those insurance companies that went MIA on people.
Do you guys, do you the SBA track how many applications, how many were approved, how many were denied, how many were distributed to, how many were actually funded? Do you have all those metrics, and are they public so that we could examine them?
I don't have those metrics. I know that there is some public information on the SBA.gov website, but the information that I have is how many applicants we have and how many was approved. Of course, that number is fluid because every second of the day there's more being approved, there's a denial, reconsideration process. But yeah, some of that information is public, but I can find out for you.
So my experience in talking with other chambers of commerce and even businesses in town is that many people have had a good experience applying. They've met very nice people at the disaster recovery centers who are very helpful. They've even been approved, but no one's been funded. I have yet to meet a single person who, I've met people who have closed on their loan and their homes have been liened or their businesses have been liened, like they still haven't received the funding yet. And so I appreciate the great customer service, And I think everybody does, but at some point, you can't spend that. They need the money. So any hope of when we might actually see the funds?
I mean, I can't say that for every person that you have heard have not been funded, there's a group that have been funded. I've talked to people who say, like, my SBA process went good, you know, everything was okay, I got my money, I'm starting my repairs. So I would have to find out that control group that you're talking to, because I can, you know, provide those that have been funded. So I can't say it's a balloon statement of some have, some haven't. Like I said, you can be approved for the loan, but there is certain criteria that is going on that have not been, you know, okay, actually, here's your funds. So I have offered all of the chambers of commerce for me to speak to their business owners on a webinar so they can answer those private questions. We can even go through their application and say, hey, I have this problem, here's my application number, can you look it up, can you see? So I'm here for that. You have my information, we've been in contact before, so just use me while I'm here. So those businesses that you know of, I may not have heard of, but I do offer to the chambers and the counties and the cities that I am here for that. So use me, let me know, I can look, I've went door to door to some of these businesses. And I can tell you that they're not understanding their withdrawal, their decline. I got their application number. I say, hey, here's what you need to do. Submit this. They're like, oh my God, thank you so much. They've gone to the center and they've got help with that reconsideration process. So, you know, we'll just have to, I mean, there's no real, the only thing that I can say is, here's how many applied. I can find out how many has been distributed actually. And then go from there, so.
Thank you, and I'll be in touch then. Thank you.
No problem, yeah, of course. Good to see you.
Because, yeah, I appreciate you.
Of course, and that's for any of the commissioners. You know, you can have my information or I can email you. Yeah, use me while I'm here. If you have any constituents that have those issues, please let me know. I can get them to the right place, help them with their reconsideration, and go from there.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, has anyone else come to speak this morning in public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Mr. Deputy County Manager, is there any further business before us?
No, there's not, Commissioner.
All right, seeing no further business, we're adjourned.
Sure.
Thanks.
Good job, Brian. Nice job.
Thanks.